I recently tried to find how many moons I could collect as a person in Mario Odyssey, but clearly it got me and a lot of you thinking of an older time. Today, we're going to answer the question that everyone's been dying to figure out. How many stars could I as a human collect in Super Mario 64? The rules for this challenge are pretty simple, so let's run through them. First, I won't be allowing myself to use any of the ability boxes, meaning the wing cap, metal cap, or invisibility cap. To truly test the limits of my human capabilities, I want to avoid conventionally impossible power-ups, opting to use more creative problem-solving methods instead. Second, in water levels like Jolly Roger Bay, I'll be making a unique exception to give myself an oxygen tank. It just wouldn't be fun to immediately lose out on all those stars, so we're giving ourselves that. Third, we're going to consider Mario's height to be 5 feet and 1 inch for this challenge, which is his canonically given height by Nintendo. Am I highly suspicious of that and doubtful that the doors of Peach's castle stand 10 feet tall? Yeah, but unlike Mario Odyssey, there isn't any strongly conflicting evidence for me to compare against. Fourth and finally, the only movements we'll be using are running, punching, kicking, and simple jumps. Even then though, I'll be gauging gaps to see if a person could actually jump them, given the circumstances. With all of that taken care of, let's go! Starting out in our first ever level, we're on our way to stop King Bob-omb. Thankfully, the traversal of this world is pretty simple, given that there's more or less a direct pathway to the mountain. The roadway up was definitely a bit more deadly, with the giant rolling balls coming toward us, and I had a couple close calls back to back and almost became a pancake. With careful timing though, we finally made it up to the top, and it was time for a grand face-off. I nimbly ran behind the king, picked him up, and... hold on. This guy is huge. He can't weigh that much though, right? Okay, apparently he does. It looks like I'm not going to be picking him up and spinning him around, let alone chucking him multiple feet. So we're done here, let's come back for Star 2. This is also a great time to note, the original star counter won't be accurate to this challenge since I'll have to do some of these levels to, beat the game. For that reason, I'll be putting an accurate counter up top for us to use. Going into our second challenge, I feel a lot more optimistic here. Generally speaking, Koopa is pretty slow, and I've got a secret plan in my back pocket if need be. Starting out the race, I had an immediate and clear head start. I could easily run as fast as Mario, if not faster, so this seems like it's in the bag for me. Getting to the base of the mountain, I had a minor incident, but had I slowed down a bit, it would have been completely avoidable. Getting a bit further up, I took a break to try to wait out the cycle, but realizing the balls wouldn't stop, I successfully hugged against the wall and made my way forward. Despite the small amount of time lost, I was all good, since I walked into the secret warp area and boom, we are at the top. A short wait later for Koopa the Quick to finally show up, we have successfully claimed our first star as a human. Arriving into this level, I took off running, then remembered I needed to talk to the guy at the start, so I turned around. This star is all about using the cannon, which I'd like to imagine all of us could agree is a no-go. That doesn't mean that all cannon-based stars are going to be out of reach for this challenge though, since my human abilities are going to still give me an edge at times with things like climbing. It's just that in this level particularly, there's nothing exactly for us to climb when the location is just a floating island. Sadly, the next 2 stars suffered the same fate. For the 8 red coins, I was able to find 7 of them scattered across the kingdom in easily accessible locations, but my luck ended for the 8th one, because it was on the floating island. And to nobody's surprise, the next star that relies on Mario flying off the island is not achievable, given that it's on the floating island. It also needs the wing cap, so either way, I wouldn't be able to get it. But why on earth would 3 of the adjacent stars all require the same stupid island? Oh my gosh. Whatever, not possible. Let's try the final official star of the map. We've got to deal with the Chain Chomp. Now this one is tricky. I do firmly believe that if the Chain Chomp bit me once, I would be dead, so we can't exactly just hang around the stake trying to chop it up. Also, based on the intended solution, the only logical option for me would be to either push it down or to pull it out. Unfortunately, neither of those seem very possible while I'm trying to dodge the Chain Chomp every 5 seconds. I wanted to get creative and consider throwing bombs at it, but since that doesn't work in the game, I'm not going to allow it. I really thought this would be one that I could get, but unfortunately we have to leave it. Genuine moment here. One of the main reasons I wanted to put off Mario 64 was due to the 100 coin stars. I don't know this game as well as a lot of you guys, so the odds of me messing up, missing coins, or calling a possible star impossible were pretty high. However, I'm ready to do my research. Thanks ADH Gaming for equipping me with the knowledge I needed. Running around the battlefield, I took my time collecting every single coin that I was aware of, and unfortunately it still just wasn't enough. All in all, I got 93 coins, with 95 technically possible due to 2 missed ones from the bombs that got away. Because so many of the coins are in the air for the flying challenge, this one sadly just isn't possible. I'm really close, but not close enough. All in all, Bomb on Battlefield was absolutely brutal, allowing us to only collect one singular star, which is a bit ironic given that it's effectively the tutorial stage. Before any of you leave though thinking that the entire video is going to look like this, I promise it's not. Things get way better super soon. Headed into our next world for the first time, we've got a fortress to scale. Headed up the ramp, I could take the intended pathway with these dangerous shifting walls, but I see an alternative option. Although this wall would be roughly 15 feet high, I imagine that the material of the wall is meant to look a lot like this, which would provide a ton of hand and feet grips. Shocker! Who would have thought the nearly 30-year-old game would need some imagination when it came to interpreting the textures? Anyways, I scaled up the wall and continued on, sneaking past not one, but 2 piranha plants, as well as bolting past the 2 Womp security guards. Finally, we're at the top of the tower. Okay, side note, I haven't played Mario 64 in years, and this dialogue is really depressing. I don't want to fight this guy, but we'll do it for the star. It's really easy to get him to fall over, and although it'd probably take me more than 3 times for sure, I could absolutely chip away at his concrete long enough to get him to surrender. Starting off solid, we've got our first star in Womp's Fortress. For this next star, we're going to start by taking the exact same pathway. We climbed the wall, snuck past the piranha plant. I actually got a little adventurous here and took a slightly different route, but all the same we ended up on top of the fortress. The only difference is now, instead of King Thwomp, a tower has magically appeared. Based on Mario's height, this platform is likely around 7 feet off the ground, which would be difficult but possible for us to climb onto, especially with the wall beside me to brace against. Once on top of the first platform, it's basically just a scary staircase to the top where we get our second star of the level. Things are looking good for humans here. For this next star, we'll be taking again the exact same route. Although I've definitely gotten a bit cocky after spending so much time here. However, we're stopping a bit earlier than normal since the star is going to be right below us. To show my plan, I'll just grab the ledge and... Okay, let's try that again. As I was saying, let's just grab the ledge and... Okay, apparently Mario's not going to ledge grab there. To demonstrate my plan, the idea was to hang here and swing back and forth, then jumping down onto the lower platform. That being said, we've got a relatively major issue. From far away, these looked a lot closer together, but on inspection, the top platform is at least 20 feet above us, and I don't think my legs would handle that fall very well. Since there's no other way to get down here, we unfortunately have to rule this one out. For this level's red coin star, we should be all good since there aren't any floating islands, right? Okay, jokes aside, we are actually all good since those ones have a legitimate option to reach them, besides literally just firing out of a cannon. Starting out, I went the intended way for the first time, getting our first coin between the moving platforms. After that, I got another one on the Thwomp, which would be a bit tricky to climb on, but not impossible. 2 more were snagged right by the piranha plants, and similarly, I got 2 without issue at the bridge crossing area. Finally, we made it to the top of the fortress, and with a little bit of force, I could push this bridge over, leading us to the islands. These jumps would be terrifying, but possible, and after getting our final coins, I made my way safely back down and toward the star. Honestly, I thought this one would be impossible due to the height that I dropped from, but to my surprise, I'd forgotten the owl does slowly descend over time. While trying to nail it at the lowest possible height, I did miss the cage the first time, but proof of concept was there. Now, you can argue whether or not the owl could hold me, but given that Mario is also an adult man, I'm not considering it out of the realm of possibility. This owl is apparently just on roids. I missed the second drop, but on the third attempt, we nailed it. Heading up the map to scout out the star, we know that it's hidden within this corner. Unfortunately, I don't think there's anything in this map that I could reasonably use to break the wall, but hear me out. The intended solution is to shoot Mario at the wall to break it open, which I couldn't survive, but as a human, I could shoot something else in a cannon. I love these little guys, but it's all the better he's literally a bomb. Corner broken, we can reach down and grab the star. For the 100 coin star, I again pulled up ADH's channel and did a little bit of research. Just for the sake of this video though, assume that I watched him before attempting the 100 coins for every level, so it doesn't get too repetitive. Overall, this process was way simpler than Bob-omb Battlefield. Most of the coins were found in the linear areas I had already visited, and the only arguably difficult task would be killing the piranha plants. Even then though, they die to a single punch, so if you get to sneak up on them, which doesn't sound like too much of an issue for me, we could do it. By the time I reached the top of the fortress, it only took a few more coins before I claimed my reward. All in all, Whomp's Fortress was insanely helpful for this challenge. The experience in Bob-omb Battlefield had me doubting how interesting this adventure would be, but it's clear that a lot of stages are going to be a lot more human-friendly than I had previously imagined. Let's move forward to the next major area. Here we are in Jolly Roger Bay, arguably one of my favorite levels in the game. Weirdly enough, I've always actually enjoyed water levels in Mario games, which sounds a little bit heretical to say, but I just find them super calming. Before we actually start the level though, I felt the need to do a little bit of research. As I said, I'm allowing myself to use an air tank here, but I want to use it realistically. As best as I can tell with this rudimentary method, it takes Mario around 15 strides to get to the top or bottom of the water. Since each stride pushes him roughly 5 feet, that means the deepest point is around 75 feet. From my googling, an air tank will last a minimum of 25 minutes at that depth, if not significantly longer, so we should be good to fully explore the level. Our first star has us immediately diving straight into things. Simple enough, we just have to swim straight down and straight back up to get the eel to leave the pirate ship. From there, it's straight back down into the door and opening these chests in order. Did I remember the correct order? No, of course not. It's been years. But with a little trial and error, we got it. I swam up pretty high before the water came all the way down, and after that, we just climbed up the slope with a little trouble to claim our first star of the bay. Going into this level, I figured it shouldn't be too hard, right? Wrong. Hypothetically, the only thing I need to be able to do is swim, but oh my gosh, it is easy to get bit or slapped by the eel. This one is precarious, and deaths may occur for some humans, but ultimately, I could get it. I just have to be pretty lucky. The chests in the cave area are also just as simple, since the only thing we need to do is head straight down to the bottom of the hole, swim up the tunnel, and make our way to the treasure in the back. Getting hit by this pillar was just a skill issue, I could have avoided it, and after hitting our chest in the right pattern, we've got a star. We've had some quick ones, let's slow down a little bit. For the 8 red coins, I knew this one was also going to be a little bit tedious, so let's get going. I started by getting all of the underwater coins, which included 3 in the nearby shells and 1 more at the bottom of the trench. After that, I made my way back up to the starting area to explore the ship. Based on the texture of these walls, similar to Whomp's Fortress, I definitely believe that they're climbable. Once up, I could easily get onto the spike, shimmy up a small amount, and grab the coin, then slide back down. Everything from here is super straightforward. A few small jumps are all I need to get to the ship, and once here, I could grab the 1 coin on the lower deck, climb the planks to the top, and grab the last 2 hovering above. As simple as that, we are just clearing through Jolly Roger Bay. With all the success that came here though, it was bound to happen sooner or later that disaster would strike. This level typically relies on use of the cannon, and initially, I figured that I could find some way around it via climbing. Unfortunately though, on investigation, these stone spikes just seem way too large to grip and climb at the base, especially if I'm soaking wet. I hate to say it, but this star seems impossible to reach for a person. For our last main star, we have one that would traditionally require the metal cap, but thankfully for me, I've got opposable fingers. After swimming down to the bottom, I could just grab the grating to pull myself across to the star. This is a great example of human me being able to do something impossible for Mario. For the final coin star, things went pretty smoothly. Jolly Roger Bay is a bit frustrating due to the fact that it only has 104 coins, which is objectively ridiculous, but at the same time they're all easily accessible. All I had to do was basically complete the red coin star again, then just swim around the map until every area had been explored. Ending in the underwater cave, we had everything we needed to head off to the next level. Entering into Cool Cool Mountain, our first star comes from the slide. Climbing onto the roof and dropping in. Did you catch that? Look, I know some of you may not like this, but let's be real. We fell at least 20 feet, if not more, due to the chimney's height, and with broken legs, I don't see a world where we successfully navigate down an icy slide. Unfortunately, we aren't getting this one. Starting out the level in a somewhat similar way, we went to climb the roof, but this time continued all the way up to the baby penguin. From here, it was just as simple as picking the little dude up and heading down the mountain. Sure, there were a few precarious moments, but as a whole, it really wouldn't be too hard for a person to do. Getting to the very bottom, I followed through with my hostage negotiations and returned the baby for a star. Oh boy, another slide-based star. I bet this one will go well. Sorry, penguin, no race for you today. So the red coin star here is interesting. On my first run through, I managed to successfully collect 7 of the 8 coins, but for the life of me, I couldn't find the last one. Eventually I gave up, went to ADH's channel, and found that it was high up on a little cliffside. Once I got the final coin, the star was thankfully super close by, and we more or less had a direct route to get there. Ignoring the way that I had to get Mario across, I could definitely step around this ledge to get from one side to the other, claiming our star. Yet again climbing on top of the mountain to slide my way down, this time we are building a snowman. After talking to the body, that thing started rolling away at Mach 10 and I chased after it. Ultimately, I would call this star debatable to say the least. I don't know if I could see myself maintaining this much control sliding down at these speeds, but at the same time, the map more or less guides you exactly where you need to end up. At the bottom, I tripped on a rock or something which hurt me, but we got our star. And for our final main one, I went back down the mountain per usual and activated the cannon. But this is sadly where our story ends. As we've seen before, this doesn't end well. Let's just go ahead and try the 100 coin star, then call it a day here. For the 100 coins, let's do some basic math. There are 154 coins on this map. About 70 of them are in the slide area that I can't enter. So 154 minus 70 is less than 100. As fun as it would be to run around, collect some, and then get disappointed that the star is impossible, let's just call things here. I'm getting real sick of shivering from the cold, so let's start shivering from fear instead. Our first star in Big Boo's haunt, I was skeptical to say the least. If you asked me in any other circumstances, I'd say my odds of being able to punch a ghost are 0. Here at least, they're much higher than that. By just walking around the mansion and smacking ghosts while their backs are turned, I can eventually summon the Big Boo and take him out the exact same way. Scary, but easy enough. For the next star, we've got to find our way down to the merry-go-round. For those of you who aren't aware, you don't have to drop down in the mansion, you can happily just take a nice elevator ride in the shed out front. Once down, it's basically just the exact same thing as last time. Punch some ghosts, punch a bigger ghost, and boom, star acquired. For our third star, all we've got to do is head upstairs, take a left, dodge some scary flying books, and push these guys in the right order. In effectively under a minute, we've already got a star. I still can't get over the fact that Bob-omb Battlefield gave us so much trouble, and somehow the Haunted Mansion is just giving us these left and right. For the 8 red coins, we basically just have to do a quick run through of the whole mansion. The first few coins are easy enough, only requiring some scary shimmying and climbing a couple bookshelves. After that, we had to face off with the scariest thing to my generation as children. Oh no, bro. Then headed upstairs. There's really not much else of note here. The last 4 coins were all achievable by basically just walking around or performing small jumps. So, with the final coin collected, we got a star, continuing our perfect streak. Bad news, the perfect streak may be coming to an end. Heading into Boo's haunt, we need to get up to the top layer for the final 2 stars. One for defeating Boo, and the other for passing through a painting. Unfortunately, it requires some wall jumps to get up, and there's no other way for me to scale this. I was hoping that we could ultimately use the bookshelves to climb up, but as you can see, they're just too far from the actual platform to justify getting over. It sucks, but we gotta roll both of these out. For the 100 coin star, I was pretty confident that we'd be able to get it due to how many blue coins are present in the level. Sure, not having access to the penthouse is mildly concerning, but I think we can make do without it. After checking through the entirety of the main rooms, I went down to the basement to collect some more coins, and at that point I was at nearly 90. I figured there had to be a few more simple ones I missed, so I headed back upstairs to check around the mansion, and what do you know? A few scuttlebugs and a yellow box later, we are good to leave this area. We've now managed to successfully clear all of the levels on the main floor. Before moving on to the basement though, we've still got to attempt the castle stars in this area, as well as facing off against Bowser. First off, trying the wing cap stage, it should probably be evident that given I'm not allowed to use the wing cap, this leads to immediate death. Our next 2 stars are going to come from Peach's secret slide. Now, before anyone comments this, I know that we drop into it in a similar fashion to the penguin slide. The key difference though is that this is how we have to enter the level, and I haven't been dictating the spawn animations of any other level entrances. Meanwhile, the penguin slide was an existing area within a level. The first star was easy enough, as all I had to do was just slide down and take my time. With the insane ledges that we could fall off of, I wasn't in any rush. The second star, on the other hand, is a lot scarier. For this one, we have to get under 21 seconds, which is much easier said than done. It would be horrifying, but it would be humanly possible. Let's just take the star as well, and never come back here. Our last star before Bowser comes from the secret hole in Jolly Roger Bay's room. Entering in, this one would be insanely easy to do with the diving tank, netting us 1 final star before a big face-off. I went ahead and approached this inconspicuous painting of Peach, and oh my gosh, it's Bowser. Making my way up the level, I did my best to collect the red coins as we went. There were a few sketchy areas to say the least, and some stupid hijinks, but ultimately we got 5 red coins before getting to the tilting platforms. I really try my best to be realistic with what I could or couldn't do, and I hate to say it, but that jump's a no-go. There's way too much of a gap here, especially with how hard it would be to run up this slope, so we continued forward to face off against Bowser without the red coin star. As it seems though, this is our only option for survival once we get here. Although his weight is debated, it's more or less a fact that I'm just not going to throw this guy. Bowser is way too hefty for me to handle, so sure, I could do the grunt work of getting the stars, but Mario's going to be the one who has to handle Bowser. As a quick retrospective before moving on, I think my biggest takeaway so far is just how unnecessary a lot of Mario's movement actually is. Whenever I've played this game in the past, I'm constantly backflipping, wall kicking, and whatnot else to get around. While it makes the game infinitely more fun to play using those movement options, it's kinda cool that the platforming was built in a way that truthfully only requires minimalist strategies most of the time. Entering into the basement, it's time to start checking out some of the more intimidating stages. The levels here seem to be a lot more dangerous to traverse, but I'm looking forward to the difficulty spike. For our first star in Hazy Maze Cave, we have a bit of an immediate issue. This gap is huge, and I'm not making that jump. Looking at the sides though, and again having to use a little bit of our imaginations, this cave wall looks pretty rugged. I think that word works well for what I'm trying to say, but like I could grip it. With that in mind, I could reasonably climb my way across getting to the other side. Also, let's be real, that'd be super lame if everything over here was cut off immediately. Through the door on the other side, we have to climb across a few more segments in the same manner, but from there things are a piece of cake. The rolling rocks are easy enough to dodge, I can 100% ride an elevator, and once at the bottom, we've just got to climb on Dory's head. It wouldn't feel good to hit her, but we can do it, and once again, we've got a star. Instead of heading to the left again, we'll be heading to the right for the red coin star. After climbing the walls of yet another deadly gap, we're again faced with an issue. This seemingly innocuous pull is actually a death pull, since it just stops out of nowhere. This drop doesn't look like much on a casual playthrough, but from down below, you can see that that's well over 20 feet up. This wall texture is also quite a bit smoother than the classic cave walls we saw earlier, so I think it'd be way harder to climb. I hate to say it, but it really doesn't seem possible to get down here. For those of you who aren't happy with that though, even if we did get down, there's no way we punch these solid rocks open, so either way, we're cooked. We aren't getting this star. Heading back to the left yet again and climbing our way across, we're going down to see Dory again. Typically, this star requires the metal cap to hit the switch, but I figured that I could honestly just jump off the land and hit it hard enough, like that. Oh, that actually works in game, I didn't know that. Heading inside, my excitement was crushed pretty fast. Rather than the cave walls, we've got brick, and most likely, this wouldn't give us enough to climb with. I hate to say it, but we can't jump these gaps, so this is where we have to stop, right in front of the star. For this start, we'll finally be heading to the Toxic Maze. Rather than taking the deadly pole that we saw earlier for their 8 red coins, I remembered an alternate route. Scaling the walls, we can just continue a little bit further in the Rolling Rocks room, climbing our way with ease to the ledge here. Editor's note: I forgot that you can just walk to the other side super easily without all the jumping and climbing. I don't know why I made that harder, but whatever, I realized later. The doorway leads us to a nice, safe elevator that's not far from the maze entrance. Unfortunately though, we are still out of luck. While I was able to defend being able to hold my breath as I traversed through it, this drop is absurdly high and there's no easy way for me to get down. Unfortunately, the navigation on this level just seems too harsh to make this happen. The next star would also typically require the Toxic Maze, but I think we can get around that with our cave wall logic. If the wall is as climbable as we think it is, then I could probably climb up to the platform up top. After that, I figured it'd just be some easy monkey bar shenanigans, but I was in fact mistaken. These bars are at least 11 feet off the ground, or in other words, I'm not going to be able to jump off and grab them. After a bit more thinking though, I realized I was going about this all wrong because I could literally just climb right to the star platform using my cave logic. Now, is this actually possible? It's iffy. There's a pretty significant gap here, which would give us a lot of trouble, but I assume I could climb up high enough to kick off and land on the star platform. I'm gonna give it to myself, but I understand if you're a bit hesitant on it. For the final main star, we basically have the easiest one to deal with yet. Going into the same room for what feels like the millionth time, all we have to do is run to the end of the hallway, climb this wall side with the grippable cave wall, and boom! The star is immediately acquired. For the 100 coins, I'll be real, this just isn't happening. There are way too many areas of this map, primarily the Toxic Maze, that have a lot of our coins just inaccessible to us. Sure, we could get some in the reachable areas, but not anywhere near enough to get the star. After spending so long cooped up down here though, I think it's time for us to spice things up a little bit. Headed into Lethal Lava Land, there's an immediate issue present for us as a human. Would it be fun for me to just skip an entire world though? No, no it would not. So we're gonna see how much would be possible for me to do, ignoring the insane heat. Our first target is the Big Bully, so let's see if we can even make our way over there. All of the navigation would be precarious to say the least, but ultimately none of the parkour is much harder than basic jumps. Once actually getting to the bully though, we have yet another age-old question. How heavy is this guy? Unlike Bowser or King Bam, there's literally nothing online even alluding to the weight, so I took another logic route. In Mario Kart DS, this is what it takes to knock the bully back with a literal car. As a human, I don't think I'm moving him, so we're just stuck here to die on this platform. Headed back for our next bully fight, we had our fair share of precarious parkour and almost burned off our toes before making it to the platform with the 3 bullies. Since these guys are way smaller, I think it would be at least feasible for me to push them off. Would it be hard? Yeah, of course, and probably in half the timelines I'd die here, but I think I could ultimately do it.
Are you sure about that?
Unfortunately for me though, I forgot that a big bully spawns after defeating the 3, so we are cooked anyways. This was the first star yet that I actually felt like we had a chance with, since we passed the red coins on our way to the first bully fight. Making our way over there, it was a quick run around the shifting pieces until we got all 8 coins. I nearly tripped in with the last one, but thankfully kept my footing and secured us the first fiery star. For this next one, we made our way back over to the right, and after just a few scary jumps, ended up at a new platform. This segment requires us to dodge some flaming spires shooting up at us, but that's not even the deadliest part of this. We have to face the log. I've never tried balancing on a rolling log in real life, and you probably haven't either, but I assume I could do it with practice. Unfortunately though, there aren't retries here. I'm going to count this star as possible, but that's definitely with a grain of salt, assuming that again, in a lot of the timelines, I probably died. For these last 2 stars, we'll be dropping into the volcano. Now, my initial thoughts on this are the same as the ice slide incident. We're entering the top of a volcano and falling all the way down to the base. That seems like a deadly fall to me, right? And even if you want to ignore that and the even higher temperatures in here, the final thing we can't really deny is the impossible parkour. Sure, I could climb poles, but I don't see myself launching off them from one to the next. Look, if 3 reasons isn't enough for you on why this isn't possible, or the next star, I don't know what I can tell you. For our final star here, we've got the classic 100 coins. We haven't talked about this yet, but I don't think the Koopa Shell would be reasonable for me to use. This thing seems way harder to balance on and navigate than Mario makes it seem, and I don't have the skills of Mario to keep my feet glued to it. So, without that navigation, we can't access many of the coins here, and it's going to be impossible. Starting out in Shifting Sand Land, we have a bit of a tedious but overall easy pathway that we can follow. We just have to head this way and oh god. Okay, we're good. Anyways, we continued along until we finally made it through the snaking pathway. Finally, we have one more weird thing to address. Unlike any other slope in the game, we can just run straight up this sheer ledge. Does the pillar have its own gravitational pull? Is this just literal magic? I don't know. But it works for Mario, so I assume it works for me. We slapped that bird, walked back down, and got our star in hand. For the next one, we took the exact same pathway, but rather than stopping at the pillar, we kept trekking up to the pyramid. These ledges are definitely dangerous, but ultimately it would be possible to climb our way up and around, making it to the... star. Back-to-back success is feeling good here. Taking the same path yet again. This time we headed inside the pyramid rather than up it. The navigation here is a bit dangerous, but altogether better than I was expecting. Wrapping my way around the bottom, I started the slow journey up, and sure there were a few enemies here and there, but between the basic climbing, wall hugging, and dodging, we got to the top without experiencing any damage whatsoever. Not to jinx myself, but I was really expecting this level to be harder. Guys, I jinxed myself. For our next star, we'll also be going into the pyramid again, this time just in a much more unique way. Headed around, we've basically just got to walk on top of each pillar, which is easier said than done. I had to retry this so many times before finally opting to jump on the second pillar from the pathway across the quicksand. Even then though, it would be pretty difficult to get down, but sure, let's say I can do it. The other 2 wouldn't be too bad, and now that the top of the pyramid is destroyed, we can... I went in the wrong entrance. I tried to redo this at least 20 times afterwards, but it was 12:30 a.m. and I was so frustrated that I just rage quit for the night. Following morning me here, all of it didn't even matter, because this fall would be impossible for me to get down. So no hand fight, no star. I hate this star. It's literally my least favorite star in the game with a burning passion. We are moving on. I'm good now. Starting out our red coin journey, the first coin is easy enough by just having us head backwards. After that though, we run into a decent issue. Another one of these blocks. Up until this point, I've considered them likely unbreakable, but it doesn't even matter here since the rest of the level wouldn't be possible. Sure, I could get the next 2 red coins, but the last 4 all require the wing cap, and there's not exactly a way for me to get up there otherwise. For our 6th star, yes, 6th, I know that says 5th, I gave up trying to get to the floating red coins. We've got the pyramid one more time. We basically follow the exact same route as last time, but rather than going to the very top, we instead follow the flow of sand. While I could maybe lower myself to the first platform, the following ones would just be too far of a drop to reasonably survive. I hate to say it, but again, we've just got something impossible here. For our final star, the 100 coins, I did my best to see how many would be achievable on the outside before heading in. While there's a bit over 50 inside the pyramid, it would be pointless to do that if I couldn't make up the rest on the outside. While I did make a few mistakes here and there, I ultimately think that a lot of the coins hidden behind things like pokies, the wing caps, or just jumping blocks would be too hard for me to get, so I'm gonna label this as impossible. Oh, thank God, we are finally done. Call it a skill issue, but I hate Shifting Sand Land with a burning passion. Let's get the dive tank back on, because we're headed to Dire Dire Docks. For our first star, literally all we've got to do is quite a bit of swimming. Headed down into the initial chasm, it's just a case of down, up, wait, no, down, up, down, okay, and then up again, and then we're good. One simple switch activation later, and boom, we've got a star. I know most people normally hate the navigation of this level, but I am just thankful for something easy. For our next guy, all we've got to do is head straight down and open up some chests. This one is pretty basic aside from the constantly present whirlpool, but it should be easy enough to avoid. Like, look, I literally got this fourth chest with no issue. Okay, on retry I got this fourth chest with little issue, and we have our star. For the red coin star here, we have to do one of the most infamous Mario 64 levels, sitting and waiting on moving poles. Surprisingly, not typically very fun, but for me, I'm again just grateful for something kind of easy. We just have to climb up here and... oh, why aren't the moving poles here? After some quick googling, it turns out we need to do Bowser first, so I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll talk about it later. But boom, we are good to go. As I was saying, this one really shouldn't be too bad. I'd probably fall off a few points, but since I'm right above water, it's not a huge deal to just climb back up. I could basically retry every segment as many times as I wanted to, since there's no risk. With that logic in mind, I confidently would say I could get this star. The next one is going to have us do something very, very familiar. I mean, sure, we have to sit in some bubble rings for like 10 seconds, but after that, I would just swim down, grip the grating, and drag myself forward to the star. Another win for my human ability to hold on to things. This time around, rather than sitting above 5 bubble rings, we just have to follow 5 bubble rings. Revolutionary. I'll be the first to say that this star can be insanely frustrating, because are you seriously telling me that this didn't count as a valid ring? But enough time at it, and we've got it. And finally, we've got our cage star. This one typically requires you to use the invisible cap, but here's the thing. Swimming up to it, am I being crazy in saying that I could probably just fit through these holes? Honestly, if I'm roughly the size of Mario, I don't think that is crazy. If we crammed our way through, I think we could get us a star. For the 100 coins, this one was the first in a while that I was confident I could easily get. Or at least I thought so. Due to being able to explore the entire area, there were no coins that should be out of reach for me. The aspect I didn't account for was the fact that there are only 104 coins in this entire level, and the loading distance is horrible. Odyssey Central, one of my favorite YouTubers, actually mentioned this ages ago in a level by level, but I'd completely forgotten about it until now. To keep this short, I swept through the entire course as well as I could, but still came out around 13 coins short. That led me to look at ADH's tutorial, where I realized I had missed some coins at the start, but even then I needed 3 more, so I watched it again and realized I missed a hidden cluster that was right by the secret exit. This is just stupid. I don't know what else to say. Why on earth would they put so few coins in a level like this? Anyways, I got my star and headed out, ready to explore the castle's basement for some additional stars. For the metal cap stage, my goal was to get the star without using the metal cap at all. I debated if I could resist the flow by holding onto the rocks below, but even if I was slowed down a bit, it'd still be hard to resist the current. Thankfully, that wasn't even an issue though, as every coin could eventually be retrieved by jumping in, grabbing one, and then landing on one of the safe areas that was jutting out. It would take a while, but with enough time, we could manage to get the star. For the invisible cap, this one started out decently well with us sliding down the slope, and although it'd be a bit spooky, I wouldn't have the same camera visibility issues as Mario, so I could actually aim toward each platform. The first red coins would be fully possible this way. After that though, we have a much more brutal gauntlet, the rotating platforms. With the first one, sure, I could do that, but things get infinitely worse super quickly. Once the platforms begin rotating over themselves, I don't see a way we could survive this. After being tormented by him for so long while filming this video, I can finally chase down the stupid rabbit and grab him. Was it easy? No, not exactly. But in real life, I wouldn't be fighting for my life with a partially functional camera, so there's that. Anyways, with enough time, I could finally catch him. After that, I made my way over to the entrance of Hazume's cave, where I talked to Toad and got myself probably the easiest star of the video. Nice! And last but not least, for the basement, we've got to face off with Bowser once again. For a red coin star here, the first one was definitely possible, but after that we took a rough turn for the worse. First off, I doubt that I could even get from this pole to the shifting platform above, but even if so, the next coin proves that we couldn't complete the star in full, since it has a major drop. Also, it probably goes without saying, but no, I cannot beat Bowser this time either. At this point, we've spent way too long in this dingy basement. It's time for us to finally rise to the next level. Literally, like we're just walking up a staircase. Entering into Snowman's Land, our first major goal was to summit, well, the snowman. Rather than taking the traditional route though, I figured that as a human, I could just climb the slope without too much issue, especially since the snow would be more malleable to me. Once up top, it's a short journey of back and forths until reaching the penguin at the top. Patience is key here, which I didn't have the first time, but on the second attempt we made it with no issue. One more time, we have a pretty rough wall here, but with the snow I imagine I could carve some hand and footholds in. Once up top, we've got a star. Entering back in, we've got something a bit more difficult to tackle this time around. Over on the far side of the course, we've got ourselves another bully. This time though, we can actually use science rather than just guessing on the weight. Since the bully is roughly 6 feet in diameter, and it's a sphere of ice, it likely weighs around 6,500 pounds. In other words, I'm not pushing this one off anytime soon. This star may actually be one of the easiest ones in the game normally, but for me, I think it'd be one of the hardest. Typically speaking, you can literally just jump on top of this and grab the star in a matter of seconds, but given that I can't jump 3 times my height, that's less than feasible for me. While trying to decide the best route here to get there, I ultimately figured that this corner would be my best bet. It would take a lot of time, but due to how thin the ice would be, I think I could eventually break through either by force or with my body heat. Either way, with enough time used, the star would be acquired. Headed around the long way, this star has us trying to get on that far ledge. Since we can't take the traditional route of magically spin floating over, we'll have to do the more brutal option of swimming in the freezing cold water. These planks seem like they'd have enough of a gap between them to be climbable, so with some misery we could get up and get our start. Hopefully the castle's warm enough for us to avoid the onsetting hypothermia though. Finally, at the red coins, one of the main questions I'd been considering is upon us to answer. The first coin is easy enough to get, but then there's this lake. There's freezing water in the level already that slowly hurts you, but this stuff just straight up behaves like lava. I know that there's no way that real stagnant water could be this cold, but it's a weird magical world that doesn't always make sense. Since we aren't using the Koopa shell, unfortunately I have to rule this one out immediately, since it would basically kill me like lava. For the last quest star, we have to make our way up into the igloo. Unfortunately though, that is going to require us to get freezing wet again. I imagine human me could climb my way up this slope by digging my hands into the snow, but once inside we've got an issue. Could I probably remove some of these wooden planks or break through the ice? Sure, with enough time, but time isn't exactly on our side. Hypothermia could set in as fast as 10 minutes, which is way less time than I need to break my way through. Unfortunately, we're gonna say undoable here. Last but not least is our 100 coin star, which suffers a similar fate as the 6th one. While there's certainly quite a decent amount of coins scattered around outside, about 50 to be exact, the rest do need to come from the igloo. Since I need to swim in freezing water to get inside, I wouldn't have enough time to collect all the coins before hypothermia set in. I'm feeling pretty sick of these cold levels, so let's change things up. Wet Dry World is our first area where it's important for me to show the painting first. As most of you know, the height you enter the painting determines the height of the water level. While I can't jump super high like Mario, I think it's fair to say that I could climb the painting's frame to enter at my desired height. For this first star, I initially tried setting the water to its middle level, and while I could get somewhat close to the star box, I didn't feel like the jump was justifiably possible here. Remember, the top of this platform would be nearly 10 feet above the one I'm standing on. Rather than getting too concerned though, I just went another route. I left and came back with the water at full height, which, funny enough, allowed me to just swim right over and get the star without any trouble at all. This time around, we're also going to enter at the top of the painting. Unsurprisingly, this tends to make things significantly easier most of the time. All we have to do is swim over to the far edge, climb up some tall steps, and balance our way across this board. Okay, let's try that again and just balance our way across the... I'm not even good at this game. I would have an easier time doing this as literal me than with a controller. One more time, just balance our way across and boom. Sure, I'm a little dizzy, but we've got our star. For the hidden secrets around the map, we're starting with the water at the middle level, which will let us reach the first two secrets. Our first one is on top of this cage, and while the timer challenge may be too short for me to do in time, the good news is human me could just climb up these walls without any issue since they're netted. Next up though, we've got a problem. This cylinder has our next secret, and it stands around 15 feet tall. Without anything nearby to climb on, and the brick material likely being almost impossible to grip, this is where we're gonna have to stop already. If you were curious though, I think the other secrets would be inaccessible as well, given that these 10 foot by 10 foot stone cubes seem way too hard for me to push around. Our last star in this main area has us start with the water at the bottom. I'm just gonna say this now, this star is not possible, and I'm gonna list off all the reasons why. First, I don't think I could break this block. Second, I can't jump the entire height of this wall, but even if you think these bricks look climbable, third, this segment is way higher up here, and it looks like the bricks are completely flat. I don't think I do too well getting blasted up by the heave-ho, so altogether, no, we are not getting this star. Of all the stars in this video, this one was actually the one that I was most excited to go to. As a kid, I thought the Hidden City was the coolest and weirdest thing in the game, and despite the odd feelings it gave me, I was still drawn to it in some capacity. With a diving tank, we could absolutely make our way into the area, but beyond that, I think we're stuck. There's really no good way to scale the buildings or the walls in this area, and since all the red coins are hidden way up high, that leaves us in a pretty bad position. I guess I'm just doomed to live out the rest of my days here. Drama aside, we're going back one last time to get ourselves the star hidden in the cage. Typically speaking, you'd need to drain the water and pass through the cage with the invisible cap, but honestly, similar to Dire Docks, I feel like I could just weasel my way through the bars with some time. Based on Mario's size, it's likely around a 3-foot gap on both sides, which is more than enough for me to fit through. It's iffy, but I'll take it. Last up, we've got our 100 coin star, and this one came out really close. Starting with the water up high, I got a lot of the possible coins at the top of the map before diving down to lower the water level. This let me get the coins on the ground level, but unfortunately I was still around 20 short. In a last-ditch effort, I climbed the fencing to get us to the Hidden City one last time, and thank God, after getting 99 coins, there was one last skeeter to kill which pushed us over the edge that we needed. This world has been super fun to revisit, but I'm ready for something more traditional looking. Let's start the process of summiting Tall Mountain. For our first star, we just have to summit the mountain. Simple, right? Not really. Immediately after the first turn, for example, we have these two large gaps to cross. Similar to the logic of Hazy Maze Cave though, I'm gonna say that I could probably climb across these mountain walls. If nothing else, it would be super lame to miss out on the entire level. From there on, it was honestly just a lot of walking. Sure, there were a couple jumps to make here and there, along with this tricky log section, but what finally stopped me here was this gap. There was no way I could make that jump, and I can't climb around it either since the waterfall shot straight through the pathway. It's a bummer, but wet rocks are no joke, and I am not getting a grip on those. This next star has the exact same issue. I need to reach a monkey at the top of the mountain. I can't get to the top of the mountain. You can probably put the pieces together why this just doesn't work. For the first time here, we have a star that doesn't require scaling a mountain, which is fantastic.
Say that again?
We're collecting the 8 red coins, the first 4 of which are right here on these mushrooms. The jumps are spooky for sure, but since they aren't spaced too far apart, they're fully doable with a healthy dose of caution. Moving a little bit forward, the other 4 coins are in this climbing section. Now, I don't think I could do all of these parkour-based jumps, but thankfully, at least to me, this background looks like vines coming down the rocks. In my eyes, that constitutes them as being insanely climbable, which would allow me to go all the way up to the top, collecting them, and then all the way back down. The final step was to make this leap from the mainland to the mushroom, and with that, we are all good. Our next star has us seeking out another slide level. It's hidden in this part of the wall, but lucky for me, guess where that area is right after? This stupid waterfall is literally my biggest hindrance of this entire video. Hey, look! A star right behind the freaking waterfall! Why does everything revolve around this stupid waterfall? Look, I could understand an argument for maybe climbing up there, but ultimately, with how wet the rocks would be, I just don't see this as truly possible. For the last main star, do I even need to say anything? Honestly? Based on our limitations of how far up we can even climb the mountain, the 100 coin star was pretty doomed from the start. I can get a decent amount of coins from some of the early enemies and the red coins, but after that we can't really go much further up the mountain. The slide also contains a lot of the coins, and as we said earlier, it's too far out of reach for us, so it looks like this mountain is just out of our skill range. Let's try a mountain that gives us a little bit more leeway. Tiny Huge Island, like Wet Dry World, has a unique feature for the initial entry. If you go in the small painting, you'll start as a giant. And if you go in the larger painting, you'll start super tiny. I'll be changing between the two, depending on which is more beneficial for each level. Our first star has us entering the tiny painting, where we'll quickly swim over, climb up onto this island, and then enter the pipe that swaps us to tiny. While I'm sure these piranha plants would be somewhat hard to kill, they're honestly pretty slow and seem to die without too much force applied. I'm gonna give myself this one assuming I could do it, but feel free to argue with me if you think I'd lose. This next star has us taking the exact same route, but now we're headed right to begin climbing up. This wall seems climbable enough to me to justify scaling up it. Then just a short walk later, we can go through this pipe to get back in our tiny form. There's a few more tall ledges here and there, but since most of them are solid dirt, I do feel like we could carve out some climbable hand and footholds. Once up, it's a matter of keeping our balance and collecting the star. After so long has passed since the start of the video, it's finally time for a rematch with Koopa the Quick. Following the same path as last time yet again, and converting to the huge island, I walked down a nearby slope to find our guy. I started the race off, and while Koopa and I ran roughly the same speed initially, there's one area that has me at a major disadvantage: the staircase. I know it sucks to say, but I would need a decent amount of time to actually lower myself down some of these ledges, because if I tried to jump them, it wouldn't go very well for me. With that in mind, I'm going to check this one off as not doable, since that time would set me way back. Also very similar to Wet Dry World, we've got another 5 secrets star. This one still lets us stay fully in our giant mode, which is great, and we follow the same pathway we've been taking. We got our first secret in front of the Rolling Balls tunnel, and the second at the top of the mountain, which are both places we've been. The third one came from this area near the beach, the fourth was in the corner, and the fifth was gotten by just jumping up and tapping this little cave entrance. Honestly, this was shockingly easy to get. Making my way back down into the initial water area, we activated the black switch one final time to get to the star. For the red coin star this level, we need to get into the secret passage on the mountain. While the cannon can typically be used for this, we'll be opting to slide down the hill instead. Making our way up similar to literally every other time, I went across the bridge before opting to slide down the grass inclines. This brought us right where I needed to be, and after some very careful balance beaming, we were in. Some of the first jumps were definitely scary yet possible, but as we got further into the tree, things just got more and more dangerous. Eventually, I arrived at this last jump, and after some debating, I can't deny that this is going to be our stopping point. It's just way too high and far for me to reasonably do. The material looks pretty flat, so not climbable, which means we're stopping here. For our last major star, we are once again climbing to the top of the mountain. Super creative, I know. Once at the top in our large form, we'll be breaking the block to drain the water down and returning in our small form. Now, typically you'd just drop in and fight the Wiggler, but I know you're gonna hate to hear this. I think we have to stop here. With some super rudimentary measuring, that looks like at least a 20-foot drop, which is going to be a no-go for me. I know these things can seem deceptively fine when you're casually playing, but looking at it now, it just seems like it's too far.
See? You see? Oh, you don't see it? He moves! Right there! Wait!
I'm not beating Wiggler with my legs in that condition, so let's move on to the 100 coins. I figured the best bet here would be to enter into the big painting, since more coins can be acquired from the big Goombas. While things were pretty good at first, I soon found that I wouldn't be able to leave this area since the jump gaps were too large, so I could only get around 30 coins down here. On the flip side, by starting the world in its tiny form, I was able to explore the top of the mountain first, which netted me close to 50 coins. Even if I had jumped down to collect the other 30 or so though, I'd still be stuck at 80 and unable to get many more due to my travel limitations. It's unfortunate to say, but it doesn't look like we can do this one. Before heading upstairs, we've got 2 final castle stars to get. The first one comes from the toad on the second floor, which is super easy to get, and the second comes from the rabbit in the basement again. For those of you who don't know, the rabbit gets a second star after you reach 50 stars, so we can chase him down one more time before heading on to the final level of the castle. We're in the home stretch, guys, just 2 more levels and Bowser, then we're finally done with this journey. Let's start with Tick-Tock Clock, definitely not because I want to avoid Rainbow Ride for as long as possible. Entering into the painting with the minute hand at 12, we'd be able to navigate this world a lot easier with it frozen. Most of the areas weren't too bad to navigate, aside from 2 specific portions. First, these cubes would be very tall to get up, but due to the nature of the pipes in them, I do think they'd be climbable. Second, this section has a really high ledge to get to, but in small segments at least, the wall does seem to have enough grooves to grab and push myself up with. Finally, I could simply climb around the cage here to get us our first star. This next star basically just acts as a continuation down the same pathway, but let's see if there's anything else we run into. Rather than entering the cage like we did last time, we'll climb up it and continue forward. Similar to last time, there are a few difficult jumps, as well as this section that we need to climb the wall to get to, but ultimately, we could make it happen. Finally, in front of the star, I walk toward it, and I hate this game sometimes. Finally, in front of the star, I walk toward it, and got our second one secured. For the first time here, we are actually jumping in at 3 to make sure the clock is ticking slowly. This initial parkour is going to be a lot scarier with things moving around, but ultimately I do think it's feasible. The scariest and hardest aspect of this would be the rotating blocks, but with fast enough climbing, I think I could probably get through it, although I'm still a little iffy. From there, it's purely a waiting game for the hand to come to us as we ride it to the other side to get the star. Once again, we are climbing up, and this time with the platforms moving. Continuing past where we went last time, I managed to keep scaling up until I reached some insanely precarious jumps. I was debating whether I could even make these work or not before arriving onto this area. Without the wire sidings of the spinning cubes, they're literally just flat blocks and I don't see any way of advancing further. So, regardless of everything else, this star's a no-go. I feel like I've said this so many times now, but this star had us, drumroll please, following the same path as last time. Rather than continuing upwards, at this point we'd move to the right to get the star in the cage above us. Again though, I honestly don't feel like I can justify these sections as feasible parkour for me to do, so I hate to say it, but I'm giving this one a no-go as well. Finally, we're back to the good old red coins, as always. Here, all we need to do is freeze time and summit the planks behind us. With the climbable wall as our background, I do think this would be more than possible for me to do with time and patience, since every platform is more or less identical to get to. Finally at the top and getting the last coins, we could balance our way over to the star, carefully reach out to get it, and then make our way down, rather than, full sending like Mario does. Last but not least, for the 100 coins, I decided the best route was to go in with the world frozen. That would let me start by getting the 8 red coins, then I could climb back down and carefully make my way up the clock. Overall, things definitely went better than I expected, especially with a lot of the yellow boxes and the blue coins being accessible, but even then, I ended up stuck around 80 coins. I'd need access to the upper regions to get more, and as we've seen in the last few stars, I just don't think the parkour is allowed there. Unfortunately, even though we're so close, we've got to stop here. After this insanely long journey, it's time for us to look at our final level. Frankly, as much as I dislike Rainbow Ride, I figured that it may be a lot easier for me as a human since 90% of it is literally just standing. Sure, there's a few frustrating parkour segments, but those feel few and far between for the most part. Taking the first carpet to the main area, I headed right to make my way up toward the boat, and it was a whole lot of jump, wait, whatnot else. Once we got to the very end of everything though, I was so disappointed to lose with victory literally in sight. This final jump right here just doesn't seem possible. With the weird angle taken into account, the top of this ledge seems roughly 12 to 15 feet up, which, as you probably know, I can't do that. Sucks to say, but we have to stop with the star in sight. For this next star, we will be headed up toward the massive house in the sky. Starting out with a similar path, we'll be taking the carpet on the right rather than the one on the left at this junction, and continuing to progress forward. That's where my sentence ends though, because not 3 seconds later, we are met with an unscalable wall, and we will be pushed to our death. Rather than having to take the ridiculously tedious carpets this time, we're simply just headed across the initial platforms to get to the red coin area. After getting on the platform though, I felt stuck pretty fast. This material seems like a smooth concrete, which, as you probably know, is definitely not climbable. Given that the entire vertical maze is made of that, we never even stood a chance to begin with. Once again, we finally get a bit of a break by taking a new route and headed to the left of the initial platforms. Sliding down the pole, we had a few precarious but possible jumps across some swinging platforms before running into a few falling logs. I really debated over this section and rewatched it a few times, but due to the height of the jump as well as the fact that the logs fall, I don't see a way that I make it and climb up with enough time to survive. Again, it sucks failing so close to a lot of these, but it is what it is. So, funny story, this star also requires the same route we literally just checked off as not possible. So, yay. And the last of our main stars is one that requires the cannon. There's no way around it, you need the cannon to get to a specific island, so we're screwed. Even if I wanted to try to survive the cannon though, we can't even get to the bomb up here, so we never stood a chance. And for the 100 coins, I think you know where this is going. With how limited our pathways are and most of them being way too hard for a human, there's just really no way to get anywhere close to the 100. Even if we could take some of the pathways, there's no way back for a human to survive. They're basically just something you have to commit to. Let's take a look at the last few castle stars and summarize the video up. Our first castle star is the Flying Challenge, which we can get a red coin, but without the wing cap, it's pretty apparent that we aren't going anywhere. Then we've got our last easy one before Bowser. This toad is going to give us our 60th star. I was really hoping we'd make it to 70 so that we could have officially gotten to this point as a human, but oh well. I'm still gonna give it a shot to see how things go. Walking up the stairs, I took one last breath before jumping in. Bowser is relentless though, and we were given no chance for any hope here. The first red coin is only accessible by moving this giant block, so 10 seconds in and our final star is ruled out immediately. I know I can't beat Bowser, so this is where my story ends. All in all, we got 44 stars as just a normal human and 60 stars as a human with scuba gear. Without scuba gear, our top 3 worlds were Tick-Tock Clock, Big Boo's Haunt, and Whomp's Fortress with 4, 5, and 6 stars respectively. With access to the scuba gear, our top performers were Whomp's Fortress, Jolly Roger Bay, and Dire Dire Docks, with 6, 6, and 7 stars from each. Thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to show your support. I had a ton of fun making this one, but oh my gosh, it took literally forever. If you want to see more content like this, feel free to check out my Mario Odyssey videos that answered the same question, or stay tuned for my next playthrough coming soon of Mario Sunshine as a human.